What if I told you that everything you want in life, success, confidence, wealth, happiness, influence, is not determined by your circumstances, your background, or even your intelligence? What if the only thing standing between you and the life you desire is your ability to control your own mind? Right now, as you listen to this, your brain is processing thousands of thoughts, filtering reality through programs you didn't consciously choose, and making decisions based on patterns that were installed years ago. Most people live their entire lives as prisoners of their own minds, controlled by fears they didn't create, limited by beliefs they never questioned, and sabotaged by a subconscious that's working against them instead of for them. But here's what the top 1% know that others don't. Your mind is not your master. It's your tool. The most successful people in the world, the most influential leaders, the wealthiest entrepreneurs, they all share one critical skill they have learned: to control their minds instead of being controlled by them. This isn't about positive thinking or motivation. This is about the science of mental mastery. By the time you finish this audiobook, you will understand exactly how your mind creates your reality, why most people remain stuck in patterns of self-sabotage, and most importantly, how to reprogram your mental operating system for automatic success. You're about to discover the hidden mechanisms that control human behavior, the neurological principles that separate achievers from dreamers, and the practical systems that will transform your mind from your biggest obstacle into your greatest weapon. Chapter 1. The Hidden War Inside Your Head. Every single day, a battle is raging inside your mind. It's a war between two opposing forces, and whichever side wins determines whether you succeed or fail, whether you take action or procrastinate, whether you live with confidence or doubt. Most people don't even realize this war is happening, which is why they lose it every single day. On one side, you have your conscious mind. This is the part of you that sets goals, makes plans, and decides what you want to achieve. Your conscious mind is logical, rational, and focused on the future. It's the voice that says, I want to be successful. I'm going to start exercising tomorrow. Or, I need to take more risks. Your conscious mind is what's listening to this audiobook right now, taking notes, and making commitments to change. But on the other side, there's a much more powerful force: your subconscious mind. This is where your real programming lives. Your subconscious doesn't care about your goals or your plans. It only cares about keeping you safe. And its definition of safety is whatever you've been doing up until now. Your subconscious mind is like a massive database that stores every experience you've ever had, every word that was spoken to you as a child, every failure, every success, every moment of pain or pleasure. Here's what most people don't understand. Your subconscious mind is roughly 1 million times more powerful than your conscious mind. While your conscious mind can process about 40 bits of information per second, your subconscious processes 11 million bits per second. This means that no matter how much you consciously want to change, if your subconscious is programmed for limitation, it will win every time. Think about it. Have you ever set a goal with absolute determination, only to find yourself sabotaging it weeks or months later? Have you ever known exactly what you needed to do to succeed, but found yourself doing the opposite? Have you ever felt like there were two different people inside your head? one pushing you forward and another holding you back. That's the war between your conscious and subconscious mind. The subconscious mind operates through what neuroscientists call the reticular activating system, or RAS. This is the part of your brain that determines what information gets through to your conscious awareness. Right now, there are millions of bits of information around you: sounds, sights, sensations, conversations, but you're only aware of a tiny fraction of them. Your RAS acts like a filter, deciding what's important enough for you to notice. Here's the crucial part. Your RAS filters reality based on your subconscious programming. If you've been programmed to believe that success is difficult, your RAS will filter out opportunities and focus on obstacles. If you've been conditioned to expect failure, your mind will literally not see the evidence of your potential success. If you believe deep down that you're not worthy of love or wealth or recognition, your RAS will make sure you don't notice the people and opportunities that could change your life. This is why two people can look at the exact same situation and see completely different realities. One person sees opportunity, the other sees impossibility. One person sees a challenge to overcome, the other sees a reason to quit. One person sees proof that dreams can come true, the other sees evidence that success is reserved for other people. They're looking at the same world, but their subconscious programming is filtering it in completely different ways. The most successful people have learned to reprogram their subconscious mind to work for them instead of against them. They understand that changing your external world starts with changing your internal world. They know that if you want different results, you need different mental programming. But here's where most people go wrong. They try to change their programming using the same level of consciousness that created it. They use willpower. They try to think positive thoughts. They make vision boards and repeat affirmations. And while these things might work temporarily, they rarely create lasting change because they're not addressing the root cause, the subconscious programming that's running in the background. Real change happens when you understand how to access and reprogram your subconscious mind directly. When you learn to install new mental software that automatically guides you towards success instead of away from it. When you discover how to align your conscious goals with your subconscious programming so that success becomes inevitable rather than a struggle. The neuroscience behind this is fascinating. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on your thoughts, emotions, and experiences. This process is called neuroplasticity, and it means that you can literally reshape your brain to support any outcome you desire. Every time you think a thought, your brain creates neural pathways. The more you repeat that thought, the stronger those pathways become. Eventually, those pathways become so strong that the thought becomes automatic, unconscious, part of your identity. Most people have neural pathways that lead to limitation, fear, and self-doubt, because those are the thoughts they've been thinking most consistently. But you can create new neural pathways that lead to confidence, success, and abundance. You can literally rewire your brain for automatic achievement. The key is understanding that your subconscious mind learns through repetition, emotion, and visualization. It doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's vividly imagined. This is why athletes use mental rehearsal to improve their performance, why successful entrepreneurs visualize their goals as already achieved, and why the most influential people in history understood the power of controlling their mental movies. Chapter 2. The Science of Mental Programming. Your mind is essentially a biological computer. And just like any computer, it operates based on the programming that's been installed. The difference is that most people never consciously chose their mental programming. It was installed automatically, without their permission, through a process that began the moment they were born. From birth to approximately age 7, your brain operates primarily in what neuroscientists call the theta brainwave state. This is the same brainwave pattern associated with hypnosis and deep meditation. In this state, your conscious, critical thinking mind is essentially offline, which means everything you experience during these early years gets downloaded directly into your subconscious without any filtering or analysis. Every word spoken to you, every emotion you witnessed in your caregivers, every experience of success or failure, every moment of praise or criticism, all of it gets recorded as absolute truth in your subconscious mind. If you heard, "Money doesn't grow on trees" 100 times, your subconscious recorded that as fact. If you experienced your parents fighting about finances, your subconscious learned that money causes stress and conflict. If you were told you were smart, talented, and destined for greatness, that became part of your core programming. If you were criticized, ignored, or made to feel inadequate, that became your truth as well. This early programming becomes the operating system that runs your life. It determines what you believe is possible, what you think you deserve, how you react to challenges, and what actions you take or avoid taking. Most importantly, it shapes your identity, your fundamental sense of who you are, and what you're capable of achieving. Here's what makes this so powerful and so dangerous. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between helpful and harmful programming. It simply records everything as data and then uses that data to predict and create your future experiences. If your early programming taught you that success requires struggle, your subconscious will make sure you struggle. If you learned that people can't be trusted, your mind will filter your relationships through that lens. If you absorbed the belief that you're not smart enough or good enough or worthy enough, your subconscious will work tirelessly to prove that belief right. The most successful people either had exceptional early programming or they learned how to identify and reprogram the limiting beliefs that were holding them back. They understand that their current results are simply the external manifestation of their internal programming. And if they want different results, they need different programming. But changing subconscious programming isn't as simple as deciding to think differently. Your subconscious mind is designed to resist change because its primary function is to keep you alive. And from its perspective, anything unfamiliar is potentially dangerous. This is why most people find it so difficult to step outside their comfort zones, even when they consciously know that growth requires discomfort. Your subconscious equates familiar with safe and unfamiliar with dangerous. If you've been programmed for struggle, success will feel unfamiliar and therefore dangerous. If you've been conditioned for scarcity, abundance will trigger resistance. If you've learned to stay small, stepping into your power will activate every internal alarm system you have. This is why willpower alone rarely creates lasting change. Willpower is a function of your conscious mind, but your subconscious is much more powerful. It's like trying to drive a car with one foot on the gas and the other on the brake. You might move forward temporarily, but eventually you'll burn out the engine. The key to lasting change is learning to reprogram your subconscious so that it supports your conscious goals instead of sabotaging them. This requires understanding the specific mechanisms through which subconscious change occurs. There are three primary pathways: repetition, emotional intensity, and altered states of consciousness. Repetition works because your brain is constantly looking for patterns. When you consistently expose your mind to new ideas, beliefs, and visualizations, you begin to create new neural pathways. At first, these pathways are weak, like footpaths through a forest. But with consistent repetition, they become stronger and more automatic, eventually becoming superhighways of thought that guide your behavior without conscious effort. Emotional intensity accelerates this process because your brain pays more attention to experiences that are emotionally charged. This is why traumatic events can create instant and lasting change in behavior, and why positive experiences that are deeply felt can also reshape your programming quickly. When you combine new ideas with strong positive emotions, you can create rapid subconscious change. Altered states of consciousness such as meditation, visualization, and hypnosis work because they temporarily quiet your conscious mind and allow direct access to your subconscious programming. In these states, you can install new beliefs and behaviors more easily because your critical, analytical mind isn't rejecting or filtering the new information. The most effective approach combines all three. You repeatedly expose your mind to empowering beliefs and visualizations. You generate strong, positive emotions around your desired outcomes, and you practice these techniques in relaxed, meditative states where your subconscious is most receptive to change. Chapter 3. The Reticular Activating System. Your reality creation mechanism. Deep inside your brainstem, there's a small network of neurons that has more control over your success and happiness than your education, your connections, your circumstances, or even your intelligence. It's called the reticular activating system, and understanding how it works will fundamentally change how you approach every aspect of your life. The RAS is essentially your brain's spam filter. Every second, your sensory organs are bombarded with approximately 11 million bits of information. That's 11 million pieces of data about sights, sounds, smells, textures, temperatures, and internal sensations. If your conscious mind had to process all of this information, you would be completely overwhelmed within seconds. You wouldn't be able to function, think, or make decisions. So your brain evolved an incredibly sophisticated filtering system that determines what information gets through to your conscious awareness and what gets filtered out. This is your RAS. And it's constantly making split-second decisions about what's important enough for you to notice and what can be safely ignored. Here's the crucial part. Your RAS doesn't filter information based on what's objectively important. It filters information based on what it believes is important to you. And those beliefs are determined by your subconscious programming. Your RAS looks for evidence that supports your existing beliefs, expectations, and self-concept, and it filters out information that contradicts them. This is why, when you buy a new car, you suddenly start seeing that same model everywhere. The cars were always there, but your RAS wasn't programmed to notice them because they weren't relevant to your identity or goals. But once you bought the car, it became part of your self-concept. So your RAS started filtering it through to your conscious awareness. The same principle applies to every area of your life. If you believe success is possible for you, your RAS will help you notice opportunities, resources, and people who can help you succeed. If you believe success is for other people but not for you, your RAS will filter out the same opportunities and focus your attention on obstacles, limitations, and evidence that supports your belief in your own inadequacy. If you see yourself as a confident person, your RAS will help you notice situations where you can express confidence and evidence of your own capabilities. If you see yourself as insecure, your RAS will focus on situations that trigger insecurity and filter out evidence of your strengths and achievements. This is not just about mindset or positive thinking. This is about the actual neurological mechanism that creates your subjective experience of reality. Your RAS is literally constructing your personal version of the world based on your subconscious programming. And that constructed reality becomes the environment in which you make decisions and take actions. The most successful people have learned to program their RAS to work for them instead of against them. They understand that if they want to achieve different results, they need to train their brain to notice different things. They know that success starts with programming their minds to filter reality in ways that support their goals rather than sabotage them. There are several specific ways your RAS can be programmed to accelerate your success. First, it can be trained to notice opportunities that align with your goals. When your subconscious is programmed with a clear, specific outcome, your RAS becomes like a heat-seeking missile, constantly scanning your environment for anything that could help you achieve that outcome. Second, your RAS can be programmed to notice resources and capabilities you already possess but haven't been utilizing. Most people underestimate their own abilities and overlook their existing resources because their RAS is programmed to focus on limitations rather than possibilities. Third, your RAS can be trained to notice people who can help you succeed. When you're programmed for success, you start recognizing potential mentors, partners, collaborators, and supporters who were invisible to you before. You begin to attract and be attracted to people who share your vision and can accelerate your progress. Fourth, your RAS can be programmed to notice solutions rather than problems. Instead of focusing on what's wrong or what's missing, you start seeing creative ways to overcome challenges and turn obstacles into advantages. The key to programming your RAS effectively is understanding that it responds to clarity, consistency, and emotional intensity. The more clearly you define what you want to achieve, the more specific targets you give your RAS to search for. The more consistently you focus on your desired outcomes, the stronger the programming becomes. And the more emotion you generate around your goals, the higher priority your RAS assigns to helping you achieve them. One of the most powerful RAS programming techniques is detailed visualization. When you create vivid, specific mental images of your desired outcomes and experience them with all your senses, you're essentially giving your RAS a detailed photograph of what to look for in your environment. The more real you can make these mental rehearsals, the more effectively your RAS will guide you towards situations that match your visualizations. Another critical element is programming your RAS with empowering questions rather than limiting ones. Most people unconsciously ask themselves disempowering questions like, "Why can't I succeed?" or "What's wrong with me?" And their RAS dutifully searches for answers to those questions, finding evidence of their limitations and failures. Successful people ask empowering questions like, "How can I add more value?" or "What opportunities am I not seeing?" or "How can I turn this challenge into an advantage?" Their RAS then searches for answers to these questions, helping them discover solutions opportunities, and possibilities that others miss entirely. Chapter 4. The Identity-Reality Connection. There's a psychological principle that governs human behavior more powerfully than goals, willpower, or even circumstances. It's the principle of identity-congruent action, and it explains why some people seem to succeed effortlessly, while others struggle constantly, despite having similar goals and similar abilities. Every action you take is an expression of your identity. Your brain is constantly asking itself, what would someone like me do in this situation? And then it generates behaviors that are consistent with your self-concept. This happens automatically, below the level of conscious awareness. But it determines most of your decisions, and therefore most of your results. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with money, you will unconsciously make financial decisions that keep you struggling, even if you consciously want to be wealthy. If you identify as someone who is unlucky in relationships, you will unconsciously sabotage good relationships or attract partners who confirm your belief about your romantic inadequacy. This is why setting goals often fails to create lasting change. You might consciously decide you want to be successful, but if you don't see yourself as a successful person, your subconscious will create behaviors that are consistent with your actual identity rather than your stated goals. Your brain will literally sabotage your efforts to maintain consistency with who you believe you are. The most successful people understand this principle and use it strategically. Instead of trying to achieve their way into a new identity, they adopt the identity first and then let their actions flow naturally from that new self-concept. They become the type of person who would naturally achieve their goals, and then achieving those goals becomes inevitable. This is the difference between outcome-based goals and identity-based goals. Outcome-based goals focus on what you want to have or achieve. Identity-based goals focus on who you want to become. When you focus on outcomes, you're constantly swimming against the current of your existing identity. When you focus on identity, you're allowing the current to carry you toward your desired results. For example, instead of setting a goal to lose 30 pounds, you would adopt the identity of someone who takes excellent care of their body. Instead of setting a goal to make $1 million, you would adopt the identity of someone who creates massive value for others. Instead of setting a goal to find the perfect relationship, you would adopt the identity of someone who is worthy of love and capable of loving deeply. When you truly embody these identities, the corresponding actions become natural and effortless. Someone who takes excellent care of their body doesn't struggle with diet and exercise decisions. Someone who creates massive value doesn't struggle with income. Someone who is worthy of love doesn't struggle with relationship dynamics. But changing your identity isn't as simple as deciding to see yourself differently. Your identity is formed through accumulated evidence over time. Every action you take either reinforces your current identity or provides evidence for a new one. This is why small, consistent actions are so powerful for identity change. Each time you act in a way that's consistent with your desired identity, you're casting a vote for that version of yourself. The key is to start with actions that are small enough to be sustainable but significant enough to reinforce your new identity. If you want to become someone who is in excellent physical shape, start by doing 10 push-ups every morning. If you want to become someone who is financially successful, start by tracking your expenses every day. If you want to become someone who is confident and charismatic, Start by making eye contact and smiling at one stranger every day. These small actions might seem insignificant, but they're actually programming your subconscious with evidence of your new identity. Over time, as the evidence accumulates, your brain begins to accept this new version of yourself as real, and larger behavioral changes become natural and automatic. Another powerful identity change technique is to study people who already embody the identity you want to adopt. How do they think? How do they speak? How do they carry themselves? What daily habits and routines do they follow? What values do they prioritize? What decisions do they make when faced with challenges or opportunities? As you begin to model their thought patterns, behaviors, and decisions, you're essentially reverse engineering their identity and installing it in your own mind. This isn't about copying their external behaviors superficially. It's about understanding and adopting the internal framework that generates those behaviors naturally. The most successful identity transformation involves aligning your environment, your relationships, your daily habits, and your mental focus with your desired identity. If you want to become wealthy, surround yourself with people who think about money the way wealthy people do. If you want to become fit, create an environment that makes healthy choices easy and unhealthy choices difficult. Your identity is also reinforced by the language you use to describe yourself, both internally and externally. Most people unconsciously use language that reinforces their current limitations. I'm not good with money. I'm not a morning person. I'm not confident in social situations. Every time you use this kind of language, you're programming your subconscious to maintain these identities. Successful people are very careful about the language they use to describe themselves. Instead of saying, I'm trying to lose weight, they say, I'm someone who takes care of my body. Instead of saying, I'm working on being more confident, they say, I'm a confident person who is still developing my skills. The subtle difference in language creates a completely different subconscious program. Chapter 5. The Neuroscience of Habit Formation. Your daily habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. Every habit you perform is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. And, over time, these votes accumulate into your identity and your destiny. Understanding the neuroscience behind habit formation gives you the power to consciously design the automatic behaviors that will carry you towards success. At the neurological level, habits are formed through a process called chunking. When you first learn a new behavior, your brain has to consciously process every step. This requires significant mental energy and attention. But as you repeat the behavior consistently, your brain begins to group the individual actions into a single chunk, creating what neuroscientists call an automatic behavior sequence. This chunking process involves the basal ganglia, a primitive part of your brain that's responsible for automatic behaviors. As a habit becomes more established, activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making and willpower, actually decreases. This is why established habits require very little mental energy or conscious effort. They become as automatic as breathing or walking. The habit formation process follows a specific neurological pattern called the habit loop. This loop consists of three components: the cue, the routine, and the reward. The cue is the trigger that initiates the habit. The routine is the behavior itself. The reward is the positive feeling or benefit you receive from performing the behavior. Understanding this loop gives you the power to design habits strategically. If you want to establish a positive habit, you need to identify a clear cue, define the specific routine you want to perform, and ensure there's a meaningful reward. If you want to break a negative habit, you need to identify the cue that triggers it and replace the routine with a more positive behavior that provides a similar reward. The most successful people have developed what researchers call keystone habits. These are habits that naturally trigger other positive behaviors and create cascading improvements across multiple areas of life. For example, regular exercise is often a keystone habit because it improves energy levels, enhances mood, increases confidence, and often leads to better nutrition and sleep habits. Another example is the habit of planning your day the night before. This simple practice often leads to better time management, increased productivity, reduced stress, and greater sense of control over your life. The key is to identify which habits have the greatest leverage in your life and focus on establishing those first. The timing of habit establishment is crucial. Research shows that habits are easiest to form when you attach them to existing routines or natural transition points in your day. This is called habit stacking. Instead of trying to remember to perform a new habit at a random time, you link it to something you already do consistently. For example, if you want to establish a daily meditation practice, you might decide to meditate immediately after you brush your teeth in the morning. If you want to develop the habit of reading, you might read for 10 minutes right after you eat lunch. The existing habit becomes the cue for the new habit, making it much more likely to stick. The environment plays a crucial role in habit formation. Your brain is constantly scanning your environment for cues that trigger existing habits. This is why it's often difficult to change habits without changing your environment. The same visual, auditory, and spatial cues that triggered your old behaviors will continue to trigger them unless you consciously redesign your environment to support your new habits. If you want to eat healthier, fill your kitchen with healthy foods and remove the unhealthy ones. If you want to exercise regularly, lay out your workout clothes the night before. If you want to read more, place books in strategic locations around your house and put your phone in another room. Small environmental changes can have massive impacts on your behavior. The most powerful habit formation technique is what researchers call temptation bundling. This involves pairing a habit you want to establish with something you already enjoy doing. For example, you might only allow yourself to watch your favorite TV show while exercising on the treadmill. Or you might only listen to your favorite podcast while doing household chores. This technique works because it leverages your brain's reward system. Instead of relying on willpower to force yourself to do something you don't want to do, you create a neurological connection between the new habit and something you already find rewarding. Consistency is more important than intensity when it comes to habit formation. Your brain pays more attention to frequency than to duration or intensity. This means it's better to meditate for 5 minutes every day than to meditate for an hour once a week. It's better to do 10 push-ups daily than to do an intense workout once or twice a week. The key is to make your new habit so easy that you can't fail. Start with the smallest possible version of the behavior you want to establish. If you want to develop a reading habit, start by reading just 1 page per day. If you want to exercise regularly, start by doing just 1 push-up. If you want to eat healthier, start by adding 1 vegetable to 1 meal per day. These micro-habits might seem insignificant, but they serve a crucial psychological function. They establish the neural pathways and identity changes that make larger behavioral changes possible. Once you've consistently performed the micro version of a habit for several weeks, you can gradually increase the intensity or duration. The research shows that it takes an average of 66 days for a new behavior to become automatic, though this varies significantly depending on the complexity of the behavior and individual factors. The key is to focus on consistency rather than perfection. Missing one day doesn't reset your progress, but missing 2 days in a row can significantly slow down the habit formation process. Tracking your habits provides additional reinforcement for the habit formation process. When you visually track your consistency, you create a secondary reward system that motivates you to maintain your streak. This can be as simple as marking an X on a calendar each day you perform the habit, or as sophisticated as using a habit tracking app that provides detailed analytics and reminders. Chapter 6. The Focus Revolution. Weaponizing your attention. In today's world, your attention is under constant assault. Every notification, every social media platform, every advertisement has been engineered by teams of neuroscientists and behavioral economists to capture and monetize your focus. While you think you're just casually checking your phone or scrolling through feeds, you're actually participating in the largest attention harvesting operation in human history. But here's what most people don't realize. Your attention is not just your most valuable resource. It's literally the mechanism through which you create your reality. Where you focus your attention determines what neural pathways get strengthened in your brain, what opportunities you notice in your environment, and what version of yourself you become over time. The most successful people treat their attention like a precious commodity that must be protected and directed with ruthless precision. They understand that in an economy where everyone is distracted, the person who can maintain deep, sustained focus has an almost supernatural advantage. Your brain has 2 primary attention systems: the executive attention network and the default mode network. The executive attention network is responsible for focused, goal-directed thinking. This is the system you use when you're working on a challenging project, learning a new skill, or solving a complex problem. The default mode network is what's active when your mind is wandering, when you're daydreaming, or when you're not actively focused on a specific task. Most people spend the majority of their waking hours in default mode, letting their minds wander from thought to thought without any conscious direction. This creates a mental environment where anxiety, worry, and negative thought patterns can flourish unchecked. It also means they're not actively strengthening the neural pathways associated with their goals and desired outcomes. Successful people have learned to spend significantly more time in executive attention mode. They've developed the ability to direct their focus consciously and sustain it for extended periods. This isn't just about productivity. It's about literally rewiring their brains to support their highest aspirations. The neuroscience of attention reveals some fascinating insights about how focus affects brain structure. When you engage in sustained, focused attention, you increase the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein that promotes the growth of new neurons and strengthens existing neural connections. This means that developing your focus doesn't just help you accomplish more in the short term. It actually makes you smarter and more capable over time. Meditation research has shown that people who practice focused attention meditation for just 8 weeks show measurable increases in gray matter density in areas of the brain associated with learning, memory, and emotional regulation. They also show decreased activity in the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, which means they experience less stress and anxiety. But you don't need to become a meditation master to harness the power of focused attention. You can start developing this capacity immediately by implementing strategic focus protocols throughout your day. The key is to alternate between periods of intense focus and strategic rest in a way that maximizes both performance and recovery. One of the most powerful focus techniques is what researchers call deliberate practice. This involves focusing your attention on the specific aspects of a skill or task where you need improvement, rather than just going through the motions. When you practice deliberately, you're not just strengthening general neural pathways, you're building precise mental circuits that enhance your capabilities in targeted areas. For example, if you want to become more confident in social situations, deliberate practice would involve consciously focusing on specific elements of social interaction, making eye contact, speaking with authority, reading body language, asking engaging questions, and practicing these elements with full attention, rather than just hoping to get better through general social exposure. Another crucial aspect of focus mastery is learning to manage your mental environment. Your brain's attention system is heavily influenced by your physical environment, your energy levels, and your emotional state. Most people try to force focus through willpower alone, but successful people optimize all the factors that support sustained attention. This means managing your sleep to ensure your brain has the energy required for deep focus. It means designing your physical environment to minimize distractions and maximize concentration. It means timing your most challenging mental work for when your energy levels are naturally highest, typically in the first few hours after waking. The practice of attention management also requires learning to say no to anything that doesn't align with your highest priorities. Every yes to one thing is a no to something else. And most people say yes to too many low-value activities, leaving insufficient attention for the high-impact work that could transform their lives. Successful people develop what researchers call attention residue awareness. They recognize that when you switch from one task to another, part of your attention remains stuck on the previous task. This residue reduces your cognitive capacity and makes it harder to perform at your best. This is why batching similar tasks and minimizing task switching is so powerful for maintaining peak mental performance. The most advanced focus practitioners also learn to use their attention as a tool for emotional regulation. When you notice yourself experiencing anxiety, anger, or other disruptive emotions, you can consciously redirect your attention to more constructive mental objects, breathing, positive visualizations, or solution-focused thinking. This isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about choosing where to place your mental energy moment by moment. Focus training also involves developing meta-attention, the ability to notice when your mind has wandered and gently redirect it back to your chosen target. This skill is like a mental muscle that gets stronger with practice. The more you notice mind wandering and redirect your attention, the faster you'll catch it next time, and the easier it becomes to maintain sustained focus. Chapter 7. Emotional Mastery. Controlling the chemical cocktails of success. Your emotions are not random events that happen to you. They are neurochemical responses generated by your brain based on your thoughts, interpretations, and mental programs. Understanding this gives you tremendous power because it means you can learn to influence your emotional states consciously rather than being at their mercy. Most people live their lives as emotional victims, believing that their feelings are caused by external circumstances beyond their control. They think happiness comes from getting what they want. Confidence comes from external validation, and motivation comes from feeling inspired. This external locus of emotional control keeps them trapped in reactive patterns where their performance and well-being are constantly at the mercy of unpredictable outside forces. Successful people operate from an internal locus of emotional control. They understand that emotions are generated from the inside out, not the outside in. They know that their emotional states are primarily determined by how they interpret events, not by the events themselves. This gives them the power to maintain peak performance states regardless of external circumstances. The neuroscience of emotions reveals that what you call feelings are actually complex chemical cocktails produced by your brain and distributed throughout your body. When you feel confident, your brain is producing optimal levels of dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. When you feel anxious or depressed, your brain is producing elevated levels of cortisol and other stress hormones, while reducing production of the chemicals associated with well-being. Here's the crucial insight. You can learn to influence these chemical productions through your thoughts, visualizations, breathing patterns, and physical postures. You don't have to wait for external circumstances to change before you can feel the way you want to feel. You can generate the emotional states that support your success on demand. The most powerful emotional mastery technique is what psychologists call cognitive reframing. This involves consciously choosing more empowering interpretations of events and circumstances. Instead of seeing obstacles as proof that success is impossible, you can train yourself to see them as opportunities to develop greater strength and capability. Instead of interpreting criticism as evidence of your inadequacy, you can view it as valuable feedback that helps you improve. The key to effective reframing is understanding that there is no objective reality, only your interpretation of reality. Any event can be interpreted in multiple ways, and the interpretation you choose will determine your emotional response. When you consciously choose interpretations that empower rather than disempower you, you take control of your emotional life. Another fundamental emotional mastery skill is learning to distinguish between primary and secondary emotions. Primary emotions are your immediate, instinctive responses to events. Secondary emotions are your emotional reactions to your primary emotions. For example, you might feel afraid when facing a challenging situation that's a primary emotion. But then you might feel ashamed of being afraid, and that shame is a secondary emotion. Most emotional suffering comes from secondary emotions, from judging, resisting, or trying to suppress your natural emotional responses. When you learn to accept your primary emotions without judgment while consciously choosing your response, you dramatically reduce emotional turbulence and increase your ability to perform effectively under pressure. Emotional mastery also requires understanding the difference between emotions and emotional states. Emotions are temporary chemical responses that naturally arise and pass away, usually within 90 seconds to 2 minutes if you don't feed them with additional thoughts. Emotional states are sustained patterns of feeling that you maintain through ongoing mental activity. When you understand this distinction, you realize that you don't have to be controlled by momentary emotional spikes. You can acknowledge the emotion, allow it to pass naturally, and then consciously generate the emotional state that best serves your current situation and goals. One of the most powerful emotional state management techniques is anchoring. This involves consciously associating specific physical gestures, mental images, or words with desired emotional states. When you consistently pair a particular gesture with a peak performance state, you create a neurological connection that allows you to trigger that state instantly whenever needed. Professional athletes use this technique constantly. They develop pre-performance routines that reliably generate confidence, focus, and optimal arousal levels. You can use the same principle to generate states of confidence before important meetings, creativity before brainstorming sessions, or calm focus before challenging conversations. Breathing is one of the most immediate and powerful tools for emotional state management. Your breathing pattern directly influences your nervous system, which in turn affects your emotional state. When you breathe rapidly and shallowly, you activate your sympathetic nervous system and generate feelings of anxiety or agitation. When you breathe slowly and deeply, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system and promote feelings of calm and clarity. The most successful people have learned specific breathing techniques for generating different emotional states. Box breathing, 4 counts in, hold for 4, 4 counts out, hold for 4, is excellent for generating calm focus. Power breathing, rapid, energetic breathing, can quickly generate energy and motivation. Heart coherence, breathing 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out, while focusing on feelings of gratitude or appreciation, generates optimal emotional states for both performance and well-being. Physical posture also has a direct impact on emotional state through what researchers call embodied cognition. When you stand tall with your shoulders back and chest open, you increase testosterone production and decrease cortisol levels. This creates feelings of confidence and reduces anxiety. When you slouch or collapse your posture, you create the opposite effect. The practice of emotional rehearsing is another powerful technique used by high performers. Before entering challenging situations, they mentally rehearse not just what they'll do, but how they'll feel and how they'll manage their emotional state throughout the interaction. This mental preparation allows them to maintain optimal emotional states, even under pressure. Advanced emotional mastery involves learning to use negative emotions as information and fuel, rather than allowing them to derail your performance. Fear can be reinterpreted as excitement and anticipation. Anger can be channeled into determination and focus. Frustration can be transformed into motivation for improvement. The key is developing what psychologists call emotional granularity, the ability to identify and distinguish between subtle differences in emotional states. Most people operate with a very limited emotional vocabulary, which makes it difficult to manage their emotions effectively. When you can precisely identify what you're feeling, you can respond more appropriately and skillfully. Chapter 8. The Mental Conditioning Revolution. Your mind, like your body, responds to consistent conditioning. Just as physical training gradually builds strength, endurance, and coordination, mental conditioning systematically builds focus, resilience, confidence, and cognitive flexibility. The most successful people don't leave their mental development to chance. They follow specific mental training protocols designed to optimize their psychological performance. Mental conditioning operates on the principle of progressive overload, the same concept used in physical fitness training. By gradually exposing your mind to increasingly challenging mental demands, you build psychological capabilities that seemed impossible before. This isn't about motivation or willpower. It's about systematically expanding your mental capacity through deliberate practice. The foundation of mental conditioning is developing what psychologists call frustration tolerance. Most people avoid mental discomfort whenever possible. When they encounter challenging problems, experience setbacks, or face uncertainty, their natural tendency is to seek immediate relief through distraction, procrastination, or giving up entirely. This pattern keeps them trapped in their comfort zones and prevents the psychological growth that comes from working through difficulty. Mental conditioning involves deliberately exposing yourself to controlled amounts of psychological challenge while maintaining your composure and continuing to function effectively. This could mean sitting with anxiety without immediately seeking relief, persisting with difficult problems longer than feels comfortable, or maintaining focus during boring or repetitive tasks. Every time you push through mental discomfort instead of avoiding it, you're strengthening neural pathways associated with persistence, resilience, and emotional regulation. Over time, situations that once felt overwhelming become manageable, and your overall capacity for handling challenge increases dramatically. One of the most powerful mental conditioning techniques is what researchers call stress inoculation. This involves deliberately creating controlled stress in safe environments, so you build the capacity to handle real stress more effectively. Athletes use this principle when they train under pressure simulation. Military personnel use it in combat training scenarios. You can apply the same concept to build psychological resilience. For example, if you want to become more comfortable with public speaking, you might start by recording yourself giving presentations alone, then presenting to small groups, then larger audiences. Each level provides a controlled dose of stress that builds your capacity to handle the next level. By the time you face high-stakes speaking situations, your nervous system has been conditioned to maintain composure under pressure. Cold exposure therapy is another powerful mental conditioning tool that's gaining recognition in performance psychology. When you expose your body to controlled cold stress through cold showers, ice baths, or winter outdoor activities, you're training your nervous system to maintain calm and clear thinking under physical stress. This capacity transfers to psychological stress as well. The key principle is that your nervous system doesn't distinguish between physical and psychological stress at the neurochemical level. When you build the ability to stay calm and focused during physical challenge, you're also building the capacity to stay calm and focused during mental and emotional challenge. Meditation is perhaps the most researched mental conditioning practice. Regular meditation literally rewires your brain in ways that enhance focus, emotional regulation, stress resilience, and cognitive flexibility. Brain scans of experienced meditators show increased gray matter density in areas associated with attention and emotional control, and decreased activity in areas associated with mind-wandering and emotional reactivity. But effective mental conditioning goes beyond traditional meditation to include specific cognitive training exercises. Working memory training involves practicing tasks that require you to hold and manipulate information in your mind, which builds mental processing capacity. Attention training involves practicing sustained focus on chosen objects while resisting distraction. Cognitive flexibility training involves practicing rapid task switching or considering multiple perspectives simultaneously. Inhibitory control training involves practicing the ability to resist automatic responses and choose more deliberate actions. Each of these cognitive capacities can be systematically developed through targeted practice. Visualization training is another crucial component of mental conditioning. When you create vivid mental imagery of desired outcomes and rehearse successful performance in your mind, you're creating neural patterns that support real-world execution. The brain doesn't fully distinguish between imagined and real experience, so mental rehearsal literally prepares your nervous system for success. The most effective visualization involves all sensory modalities: seeing, hearing, feeling, and even imagining smells and tastes associated with success. The more detailed and emotionally engaging your mental rehearsals, the more powerful their conditioning effect. Many elite performers spend significant time each day mentally rehearsing optimal performance scenarios. Mental conditioning also involves developing what researchers call cognitive load management. This is the ability to perform effectively even when your mental resources are partially depleted by stress, fatigue, or competing demands. Most people's performance degrades significantly when they're operating under cognitive load, but mental conditioning can minimize this degradation. This involves practicing important skills and decision-making processes while artificially increasing cognitive load through background tasks, time pressure, or environmental stress. When you can maintain performance quality under these challenging conditions, normal circumstances feel effortless by comparison. Another advanced mental conditioning technique is adversity rehearsal. This involves mentally rehearsing how you'll respond to potential setbacks, failures, or obstacles before they occur. By pre-experiencing challenging scenarios in your imagination and rehearsing effective responses, you build psychological resilience and reduce the shock value of real adversity. The practice of mental contrasting is also valuable for conditioning your mind for realistic optimism. This involves visualizing your desired outcomes while also honestly acknowledging the obstacles and challenges you'll likely face. This balanced approach prevents both naive optimism and paralyzing pessimism while building genuine confidence based on realistic preparation. Mental conditioning requires consistent practice over time. Just as physical fitness deteriorates without regular exercise, mental conditioning benefits fade without ongoing practice. The most successful people maintain regular mental training routines that keep their psychological capabilities sharp and constantly expanding. Chapter 9. Breaking through mental barriers and resistance. Every person who has ever achieved anything significant has had to overcome the most sophisticated sabotage system ever created: their own mind. Your brain is equipped with multiple defense mechanisms designed to keep you safe, comfortable, and consistent with your existing identity. While these mechanisms served important functions in our evolutionary past, they now often prevent the very changes and growth that would lead to success and fulfillment. Understanding these mental barriers is the first step to overcoming them. The most common and destructive barrier is what psychologists call the psychological immune system. Just as your body has an immune system that attacks foreign invaders to keep you physically healthy, your mind has an immune system that attacks foreign ideas, beliefs, and identities to keep your self-concept stable. When you try to adopt new beliefs about what's possible for you, when you attempt to step into a larger version of yourself, or when you start behaving in ways that contradict your historical patterns, your psychological immune system activates. It generates doubt, fear, procrastination, and self-sabotage to pull you back into familiar territory. This is why most people experience the greatest resistance just as they're about to break through to a new level. It's not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that you're approaching the edge of your current identity, and your mind is trying to protect the status quo. Recognizing this pattern allows you to push through the resistance instead of being defeated by it. Another major mental barrier is what researchers call learned helplessness. This occurs when you've experienced repeated failures or setbacks in a particular area, and your brain has concluded that success in that area is impossible. Even when circumstances change and success becomes achievable, the learned helplessness program continues to generate defeatist thinking and prevent you from taking effective action. Learned helplessness is particularly insidious because it feels like realistic assessment rather than psychological limitation. Your mind presents convincing evidence for why success isn't possible, drawing from your past experiences to build a compelling case for giving up. Breaking through learned helplessness requires understanding that your past results were determined by your past capabilities and circumstances, not your future potential. The imposter syndrome represents another common mental barrier, particularly among high achievers. This involves the persistent fear that you're not as competent as others believe, and that you'll eventually be exposed as a fraud. Even when you achieve objective success, imposter syndrome generates anxiety and prevents you from fully owning your accomplishments or stepping into greater challenges. Imposter syndrome is maintained by attributing your successes to luck, timing, or other external factors, while attributing your failures to internal inadequacies. Overcoming this barrier requires consciously retraining your attribution patterns to acknowledge your role in creating positive outcomes, while viewing setbacks as temporary learning opportunities rather than evidence of fundamental inadequacy. Perfectionism creates another significant mental barrier, though it's often disguised as a positive trait. While high standards can be valuable, perfectionism becomes destructive when it prevents action or when it creates paralyzing fear of making mistakes. Perfectionistic thinking often manifests as all or nothing reasoning, where anything less than perfect performance feels like complete failure. The antidote to perfectionism is developing what researchers call good enough thinking. This involves setting standards that are high enough to produce quality results, but realistic enough to permit action and learning. It means understanding that excellence emerges through iteration and refinement, not through attempting perfection on the first try. Analysis paralysis represents another common form of mental resistance. This occurs when you become stuck in endless research, planning, and preparation without ever taking action. While preparation is valuable, analysis paralysis uses the pursuit of certainty as an excuse to avoid the discomfort and risk inherent in taking action toward your goals. Breaking through analysis paralysis requires accepting uncertainty as a permanent condition of life and developing comfort with making decisions based on incomplete information. It means understanding that taking imperfect action and adjusting based on feedback is almost always more effective than waiting for perfect clarity that may never come. Fear-based thinking creates perhaps the most pervasive mental barriers. Your brain is wired to scan for potential threats and generate fear responses to keep you safe. In modern environments, this threat detection system often creates excessive fear of psychological risks, rejection, failure, judgment, financial loss that prevents you from pursuing opportunities for growth and success. The key to managing fear-based thinking is understanding the difference between real threats and imagined threats. Most of the scenarios your mind presents as dangerous are either highly unlikely or manageable even if they occur. Learning to evaluate risks rationally rather than emotionally allows you to take appropriate action despite fear. Cognitive biases represent another category of mental barriers. These are systematic errors in thinking that influence your perceptions and decisions in predictable ways. Confirmation bias leads you to seek information that confirms your existing beliefs, while ignoring contradictory evidence. Anchoring bias causes you to rely too heavily on the first piece of information you receive about a topic. Overconfidence bias leads you to overestimate your abilities or the accuracy of your judgments, while negativity bias causes you to give disproportionate weight to negative information and experiences. Understanding these biases doesn't eliminate them, but it allows you to compensate for their effects and make more accurate assessments. The sunk cost fallacy represents a particularly destructive cognitive bias where you continue investing time, energy, or resources into unproductive activities because you've already invested so much that stopping feels like admitting waste. This prevents you from cutting losses and redirecting your efforts toward more promising opportunities. Social conditioning creates additional mental barriers through the installation of limiting beliefs about what's possible or appropriate for someone in your circumstances. These beliefs are often absorbed unconsciously from family, culture, media, and peer groups. They operate as invisible constraints that prevent you from even considering certain possibilities or pursuing certain goals. Breaking through social conditioning requires developing awareness of these inherited beliefs and consciously examining whether they serve your current aspirations. It means questioning assumptions about what's normal, possible, or appropriate for you, and being willing to violate social expectations when they conflict with your authentic goals. The key to breaking through all mental barriers is understanding that resistance is not evidence that you should stop. It's evidence that you're approaching something important. The magnitude of resistance is often proportional to the significance of the breakthrough waiting on the other side. Chapter 10. The Daily Mental Mastery System. Mental mastery isn't achieved through occasional heroic efforts or sporadic bursts of motivation. It's built through consistent daily practices that gradually rewire your brain and establish new default patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. The most successful people follow systematic daily routines that continuously upgrade their mental operating systems. Your morning routine sets the neurochemical and psychological tone for your entire day. Most people unconsciously start their day in reactive mode, immediately checking phones, consuming news, or jumping into urgent tasks. This activates stress hormones and puts your nervous system in a defensive, scattered state that persists throughout the day. A strategic morning routine begins before you encounter any external inputs. The first hour after waking is when your brain is most neuroplastic and receptive to programming. This is your daily opportunity to consciously install empowering beliefs, generate optimal emotional states, and activate the neural networks associated with your highest goals. The foundation of an effective morning routine is mindful awakening. Instead of jolting into consciousness with an alarm and immediately reaching for your phone, you slowly transition from sleep while maintaining awareness of your internal state. This prevents the shock to your nervous system that creates unnecessary stress hormones. Upon waking, successful people engage in what researchers call positive prime programming. This involves consciously generating thoughts and images related to your goals, desired identity, and optimal performance. You might visualize achieving important objectives, mentally rehearse challenging conversations, or simply hold images of your ideal self in mind while experiencing associated positive emotions. This programming works because your brain is still in alpha and theta wave states associated with heightened suggestibility. The mental content you expose yourself to during these states gets encoded more deeply than information received during normal waking consciousness. You're literally programming your subconscious for success while your critical mind is still offline. Movement and breathing practices form another crucial component of morning mental conditioning. Physical exercise increases production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which promotes neural growth and cognitive enhancement. Even light movement like stretching or walking stimulates circulation and activates your nervous system in healthy ways. Specific breathing exercises can generate desired mental states on command. Box breathing promotes calm focus. Breath of fire generates energy and motivation. And coherent breathing optimizes heart rate variability for peak performance states. Mastering these techniques gives you conscious control over your neurophysiology. Meditation or mindfulness practice develops the foundational mental skill of attention regulation. Even 10 minutes of daily meditation strengthens neural circuits associated with focus, emotional regulation, and self-awareness. This isn't about achieving a blank mind. It's about building the capacity to direct your attention consciously rather than being carried away by automatic mental patterns. The practice of gratitude programming rewires your brain's negativity bias. Your nervous system is naturally programmed to scan for problems and threats, which creates a tendency toward negative thinking and stress. Deliberately focusing on positive aspects of your life and feeling genuine appreciation creates new neural pathways associated with abundance and well-being. But effective gratitude practice goes beyond simply listing things you're thankful for. It involves generating authentic emotional states of appreciation while considering specific details about positive aspects of your life. The emotional component is crucial because emotions are what create lasting neurological change. Goal visualization with sensory richness programs your reticular activating system to notice opportunities and resources related to your objectives. But effective visualization isn't just about seeing mental images. It's about creating multi-sensory mental experiences that feel emotionally real. The more vivid and detailed your mental rehearsals, the more powerfully they program your unconscious mind. Educational input should be carefully chosen to align with your mental development objectives. Instead of consuming random content or news that generates anxiety and negativity, successful people intentionally expose their minds to information that reinforces empowering beliefs and expands their capabilities. This might include audiobooks, podcasts, or videos related to your field of expertise or personal development goals. Evening routines are equally important for mental mastery because they determine the mental content that gets processed during sleep. Your brain continues processing and integrating information throughout the night, so the thoughts and experiences you have before sleep significantly influence this unconscious processing. An effective evening routine includes reflection and integration practices. This involves reviewing the day's experiences, identifying lessons learned, and acknowledging progress made toward your goals. This conscious integration helps your brain encode positive experiences more deeply and extract maximum learning from challenges. Planning the following day during your evening routine programs your subconscious to work on your objectives while you sleep. When you clearly identify your priorities and visualize successful completion of important tasks, your brain begins problem-solving and pattern recognition processes that continue throughout the night. Reading before sleep particularly content related to your goals or areas of interest, provides your subconscious with raw material for creative processing. Many breakthrough insights and solutions emerge during sleep when your conscious mind isn't interfering with natural associative processes. Digital boundaries are crucial for mental mastery. The constant stimulation from phones, social media, and screens disrupts natural circadian rhythms, fragments attention, and exposes your mind to anxiety-provoking content designed to capture attention. Setting specific times for digital consumption and maintaining technology-free zones protects your mental environment. Stress inoculation should be built into daily routines through practices that create controlled challenge. This might include cold exposure, intense exercise, breath-holding exercises, or deliberately putting yourself in mildly uncomfortable, social or professional situations. These practices build psychological resilience and expand your comfort zone systematically. Weekly and monthly review processes ensure continuous refinement of your mental mastery practices. This involves assessing which routines are producing desired results, identifying areas for improvement, and adjusting your practices based on feedback and changing circumstances. Mental mastery is not a destination but an ongoing process of optimization and growth. Chapter 11. Advanced Subconscious Reprogramming Techniques. Most people try to change their lives by changing their actions, but lasting transformation happens when you change the subconscious programs that generate those actions automatically. Your subconscious mind is like a sophisticated computer that's been programmed with thousands of beliefs, associations, and automatic responses. These programs were installed mostly during childhood when your critical thinking wasn't developed enough to filter out limiting or destructive beliefs. The most powerful transformation occurs when you learn to access and reprogram these deep subconscious patterns directly. This isn't about positive thinking or surface-level affirmations. It's about using advanced psychological techniques to install new operating systems in your mind that automatically generate success-oriented thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. The first advanced technique is what neuroscientists call state-dependent learning. Your brain forms stronger memories and learns more effectively when you're in specific neurological states. This is why traumatic events often create instant and lasting behavioral changes, and why peak positive experiences can also reshape your identity permanently. You can use this principle deliberately by entering optimal learning states before programming new beliefs and behaviors. The most effective state for subconscious reprogramming is the theta brainwave state, which occurs naturally just before sleep and just after waking, during deep meditation, and during certain types of visualization. In theta state, your conscious, critical mind is largely offline, which allows direct access to subconscious programming. This is when your brain is most receptive to installing new beliefs, identities, and automatic behavioral patterns. To access theta state deliberately, you can use progressive relaxation techniques where you systematically relax every muscle in your body while maintaining awareness. You can also use breathing techniques that slow your brainwaves, such as breathing in for 4 counts, holding for 7, and exhaling for 8. Repetitive activities like walking, gentle movement, or listening to binaural beats can also induce theta states. Once you're in theta state, you can begin installing new subconscious programming through what researchers call experiential visualization. This goes far beyond simple mental imagery to create complete sensory experiences that feel real to your subconscious mind. The key is to visualize your desired identity and outcomes with all five senses, while generating authentic emotional states associated with success. For example, if you want to reprogram yourself for financial abundance, you wouldn't just visualize having money. You would create a complete sensory experience of living abundantly, seeing yourself in prosperous environments, hearing the sounds associated with success, feeling the emotions of security and freedom, even imagining the tastes and smells associated with an abundant lifestyle. The more real you make these experiences, the more powerfully they reprogram your subconscious. Another advanced reprogramming technique is called temporal shifting. This involves using your imagination to install positive memories and remove the emotional charge from negative ones. Since your subconscious doesn't distinguish between real and vividly imagined experiences, you can literally create new past experiences that support your desired identity. This technique involves revisiting challenging experiences from your past and reimagining them with you, responding from a place of strength, wisdom, and capability. You're not denying that negative events happened. You're changing your internal representation of those events to extract empowering lessons rather than limiting beliefs. Over time, these new internal representations become more prominent in your memory than the original experiences. You can also use temporal shifting to create future memories. By vividly experiencing successful outcomes in your imagination with full sensory detail and authentic emotion, you create neural patterns that guide your subconscious toward making those experiences reality. Your brain begins to treat these imagined futures as memories to be recreated rather than fantasies to be dismissed. The technique of identity anchoring involves associating specific physical gestures, postures, or movements with your desired identity characteristics. Every time you embody the posture of confidence, success, or determination, while feeling those emotions authentically, you create stronger neural associations between the physical state and the psychological state. Eventually, simply adopting the posture will trigger the associated emotional and mental patterns automatically. Professional performers and athletes use this technique extensively. They develop signature physical gestures that instantly trigger peak performance states. You can create your own confidence anchors, focus anchors, creativity anchors, or any other state you want to access on demand. The key is to practice these associations consistently until they become automatic. Environmental programming is another powerful subconscious reprogramming tool. Your brain is constantly being programmed by your environment through a process called incidental learning. Most people don't realize they're being programmed by the books they read, the people they spend time with, the media they consume, and the physical spaces they inhabit. You can use environmental programming deliberately by surrounding yourself with inputs that reinforce your desired identity and goals. This means choosing books, podcasts, videos, and conversations that expose your subconscious to the thinking patterns of successful people. It means spending time in environments that make you feel inspired and capable. It means associating with people who embody the characteristics you want to develop. The practice of mental rehearsal goes beyond simple visualization to include complete behavioral sequences. This involves mentally practicing not just outcomes, but the entire process of achieving those outcomes. You rehearse handling obstacles, making decisions, interacting with people, and executing strategies. This comprehensive mental practice creates neural pathways that make real-world execution feel familiar and automatic. Sleep programming utilizes the fact that your subconscious mind remains active and receptive during sleep. By listening to carefully crafted audio programs while sleeping, you can program new beliefs and behaviors without conscious resistance. The key is using content that's designed specifically for subconscious absorption rather than conscious learning. Advanced practitioners also use what's called belief stacking, where you build new, empowering beliefs on top of existing beliefs rather than trying to replace them entirely. This reduces psychological resistance because you're expanding your belief system rather than contradicting it. For example, instead of trying to replace the belief that success is difficult with the belief that success is easy, you might install the belief that you're someone who thrives on challenges and turns difficulty into opportunity. Chapter 12. Building unshakable mental resilience. Mental resilience is not about avoiding stress, setbacks, or challenges. It's about developing the psychological capacity to maintain optimal performance and emotional stability regardless of external circumstances. The most successful people aren't those who face fewer obstacles. They're those who have developed the mental strength to transform obstacles into opportunities for growth and advancement. Resilience operates on multiple levels. Cognitive resilience allows you to maintain clear thinking under pressure. Emotional resilience enables you to regulate your feelings during challenging situations. Behavioral resilience helps you continue taking productive action even when motivation is low. And physiological resilience ensures your body can handle stress without breaking down. The neuroscience of resilience reveals that psychological toughness is not a fixed trait you're born with. It's a set of cognitive and emotional skills that can be systematically developed. Brain imaging studies show that resilient people have stronger connections between their prefrontal cortex and their amygdala, which means they can maintain rational thinking even when their alarm systems are activated. The foundation of mental resilience is developing what psychologists call distress tolerance. Most people have very low tolerance for psychological discomfort, which means they immediately seek relief whenever they experience anxiety, frustration, boredom, or uncertainty. This pattern keeps them trapped in narrow comfort zones and prevents the growth that comes from working through challenging situations. Building distress tolerance involves deliberately exposing yourself to controlled amounts of psychological discomfort while maintaining your composure and continuing to function effectively. This could mean sitting with anxiety without immediately distracting yourself, persisting with boring tasks longer than feels natural, or maintaining focus during frustrating situations without giving up. Every time you push through psychological discomfort instead of avoiding it, you're literally rewiring your brain to handle greater levels of challenge. The neural pathways associated with persistence, patience, and emotional regulation become stronger, while the pathways associated with avoidance and emotional reactivity become weaker. One of the most powerful resilience-building techniques is adversity inoculation. This involves deliberately creating controlled challenges in your daily life so you build the capacity to handle real adversity more effectively. This might mean taking cold showers to build physical and mental toughness, setting artificial deadlines to work under time pressure, or putting yourself in mildly uncomfortable social situations to build confidence. The key principle is that your nervous system adapts to whatever level of challenge you regularly expose it to. If you consistently avoid discomfort, your tolerance for challenge decreases over time. If you regularly expose yourself to manageable levels of difficulty, Your capacity for handling stress increases systematically. Cognitive resilience involves developing thinking patterns that maintain clarity and optimism even during difficult circumstances. The most resilient people have learned to separate facts from interpretations, focusing on what they can control rather than dwelling on things beyond their influence. They view setbacks as temporary rather than permanent, specific rather than universal, and external rather than personal. This involves mastering what psychologists call cognitive restructuring, the ability to consciously choose more empowering interpretations of challenging events. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" resilient people ask, "How can I use this experience to become stronger?" Instead of thinking, "This proves I can't succeed," they think, "This shows me what I need to work on next." Emotional resilience requires learning to maintain emotional stability during turbulent situations. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions. It means developing the capacity to experience difficult emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Resilient people understand that emotions are temporary chemical reactions that naturally arise and pass away if you don't feed them with additional thoughts. The practice of emotional surfing involves observing your emotions with curiosity rather than judgment, allowing them to rise and fall naturally without trying to control or change them. This reduces the secondary suffering that comes from fighting your natural emotional responses and builds confidence in your ability to handle whatever you're feeling. Physical resilience forms the foundation for psychological resilience because your mental state is heavily influenced by your physical condition. When your body is strong, well-rested, and properly nourished, your mind has the resources it needs to handle stress effectively. When your physical systems are compromised, psychological resilience becomes much more difficult to maintain. Building physical resilience involves regular exercise that challenges your cardiovascular system and builds strength. Maintaining consistent sleep patterns that allow for proper recovery, eating foods that support stable energy and brain function, and managing stress through breathing techniques, meditation, or other relaxation practices. The concept of anti-fragility, developed by researcher Nassim Taleb, goes beyond resilience to describe systems that actually get stronger when exposed to stress. While resilience means bouncing back from challenges, anti-fragility means using challenges as fuel for growth and improvement. The most successful people develop anti-fragile mindsets, where obstacles become opportunities for developing greater capability. This involves reframing setbacks as valuable feedback that accelerates your learning and growth. Every failure provides information about what doesn't work and pushes you to develop better strategies. Every criticism reveals blind spots that you can address. Every obstacle forces you to develop new skills and capabilities that make you stronger for future challenges. Building social resilience involves developing strong relationships and support systems that provide encouragement and assistance during difficult times. Humans are social creatures, and isolation during challenging periods can severely compromise psychological resilience. Having people you can rely on for emotional support, practical assistance, and honest feedback dramatically increases your capacity to handle adversity. This doesn't mean depending on others to solve your problems. It means building relationships where you can give and receive support mutually. The strongest people understand that asking for help when needed is a sign of wisdom, not weakness, and that supporting others builds their own resilience as well. Recovery rituals are essential for maintaining resilience over time. Just as physical muscles need rest after intense training, Your psychological systems need regular recovery to maintain peak performance. This might involve daily meditation, weekly nature walks, monthly digital detoxes, or quarterly retreats where you step back from daily pressures and reconnect with your deeper values and objectives. The practice of meaning-making helps transform suffering into strength by finding purpose in challenging experiences. When you can identify how difficulties contribute to your growth, help you serve others more effectively, or prepare you for greater opportunities, you transform pain into power. This doesn't mean being grateful for suffering, but it means extracting maximum value from difficult experiences. Chapter 13. The Psychology of Influence and Persuasion. Understanding the psychology of influence isn't about manipulating others. It's about communicating more effectively, building stronger relationships, and creating positive change in your environment. When you understand how human psychology works at a fundamental level, you can present your ideas more persuasively, inspire others to take action, and build the kind of relationships that accelerate your success. The foundation of all influence is understanding that people make decisions based on emotions and then justify those decisions with logic. While people believe they're rational decision makers, neuroscience reveals that emotions drive most choices, and reasoning is often used after the fact to support decisions that were made unconsciously. This means effective influence involves engaging both emotional and logical systems in the brain. The most powerful influence technique is building genuine rapport and trust. People are far more likely to be influenced by someone they like, trust, and feel understands them. This isn't about superficial charm or manipulation. It's about developing authentic connection through deep listening, empathy, and genuine interest in others' perspectives and experiences. Rapport is built through multiple channels, matching communication styles, finding common ground, demonstrating understanding of others' challenges and goals, and consistently following through on commitments. When people feel that you genuinely care about their well-being and success, they become naturally more receptive to your ideas and suggestions. The principle of reciprocity is one of the most fundamental drivers of human behavior. People have a deep psychological need to return favors and maintain balance in their relationships. This means that providing value before asking for anything in return creates a powerful psychological tendency for others to want to help you in return. Effective use of reciprocity involves looking for ways to help others achieve their goals, solve their problems, or improve their situations without expecting immediate returns. This could mean sharing valuable information, making introductions, providing support during challenging times, or simply giving sincere recognition and appreciation. The key is that your help must be genuine and valuable, not trivial or self-serving. Social proof is another powerful influence mechanism. People naturally look to others' behavior as a guide for their own actions, especially in uncertain situations. When you can demonstrate that others, particularly others similar to your audience, have successfully adopted your recommendations or achieved positive results, you create powerful motivation for people to follow similar paths. This principle can be applied by sharing success stories and testimonials, highlighting popular choices or common behaviors, and creating environments where positive actions are visible and celebrated. The key is ensuring that the social proof you provide is authentic and relevant to your audience's situation and aspirations. Authority and credibility significantly influence how receptive people are to your ideas. This doesn't necessarily mean formal credentials or titles. It means demonstrating genuine expertise, experience, and wisdom in areas relevant to your message. People are naturally inclined to follow guidance from those they perceive as knowledgeable and competent. Building authentic authority involves continuously developing your knowledge and skills, sharing valuable insights and information, acknowledging the limits of your expertise, and consistently demonstrating good judgment in your decisions and recommendations. True authority comes from competence and character, not from position or pretense. The scarcity principle leverages people's natural tendency to value things more highly when they perceive them as rare or limited. This isn't about creating false urgency, but about helping people recognize the true value and limited nature of opportunities, resources, or time. When people understand that something valuable won't be available indefinitely, they're more motivated to take action. Effective use of scarcity involves highlighting genuine limitations, deadlines, or exclusive opportunities, while providing clear information about why these limitations exist. The key is authenticity. Manufactured scarcity backfires when people recognize it as manipulation rather than genuine circumstance. Commitment and consistency drive much human behavior because people have a strong psychological need to align their actions with their stated beliefs and previous commitments. When people make public commitments or take small initial actions toward a goal, they become much more likely to follow through with larger actions that support consistency with their earlier choices. This principle can be leveraged by helping people articulate their values and goals clearly, encouraging small initial commitments that align with desired larger actions, and creating opportunities for people to make public declarations of their intentions. The key is ensuring that commitments are genuine and self-determined rather than coerced. Effective storytelling is one of the most powerful influence tools because stories engage emotions, bypass analytical resistance, and help people visualize themselves in similar situations. When you can illustrate your points through compelling narratives that people can relate to, you create much more persuasive communication than through abstract arguments or data alone. Powerful stories include relatable characters, challenging obstacles, and satisfying resolutions that demonstrate the benefits of adopting your recommendations. The most effective stories position your audience as the hero of their own journey rather than casting yourself in that role. You want people to see themselves succeeding, not just admire your successes. The contrast principle influences perception by highlighting differences between options or before and after scenarios. People evaluate options relative to alternatives rather than in absolute terms, which means that how you frame comparisons significantly affects decision-making. By strategically presenting contrasts, you can help people recognize the value of your recommendations more clearly. This might involve comparing current situations with potential futures, highlighting the differences between taking action and maintaining the status quo, or demonstrating the relative value of different approaches to achieving goals. The key is presenting honest comparisons that help people make better decisions rather than manipulating their perceptions. Advanced influence involves understanding and adapting to different personality types and communication preferences. Some people are motivated primarily by logic and data, while others respond more to emotions and relationships. Some prefer detailed information, while others want concise summaries. Some need time to consider decisions, while others prefer to decide quickly. The most influential people develop flexibility in their communication styles, learning to present their ideas in ways that resonate with their specific audience's preferences and decision-making patterns. This requires developing emotional intelligence and observational skills to read people accurately and adjust your approach accordingly. Chapter 14. Scaling Mental Mastery for Long-Term Success. Mental mastery isn't a destination you reach once and then maintain effortlessly. It's an ongoing process of growth, refinement, and adaptation that must evolve as your circumstances, challenges, and objectives change over time. The most successful people understand that the mental tools and strategies that got them to their current level won't necessarily be sufficient to reach the next level. This means developing what researchers call meta-learning, the ability to learn how to learn more effectively. Instead of just acquiring knowledge and skills, you develop the capacity to identify what you need to learn, how to learn it most efficiently, and how to transfer learning from one domain to another. This creates exponential growth rather than linear improvement. The foundation of scalable mental mastery is building what psychologists call cognitive flexibility. This is the ability to switch between different thinking strategies depending on the situation, to see problems from multiple perspectives simultaneously, and to adapt your mental approaches when circumstances change. Cognitive flexibility prevents you from becoming trapped in mental ruts that limit your growth and effectiveness. Developing cognitive flexibility involves regularly exposing yourself to new ideas, perspectives, and ways of thinking. This might mean studying different fields, engaging with people who think differently than you do, traveling to new environments, or deliberately practicing thinking about familiar problems in unfamiliar ways. The key is maintaining intellectual humility and curiosity, rather than becoming attached to any single worldview or approach. Systems thinking represents another crucial element of scalable mental mastery. Instead of focusing only on individual events or isolated problems, systems thinkers understand the patterns, relationships, and feedback loops that create outcomes over time. This allows them to identify leverage points where small changes can create large improvements, and to anticipate unintended consequences of their actions. Systems thinking involves learning to see connections between seemingly unrelated events, understanding how actions in one area of life affect other areas, and recognizing patterns that repeat across different contexts. This perspective helps you make better decisions, solve problems more effectively, and create sustainable improvements rather than temporary fixes. The concept of compound leverage is essential for scaling success over time. Just as compound interest creates exponential financial growth, compound leverage creates exponential improvements in capability and results. This involves identifying activities that not only produce immediate benefits, but also increase your capacity to produce even greater benefits in the future. For example, learning to communicate more effectively not only improves your current relationships and opportunities, but also increases your ability to build stronger relationships and create greater opportunities in the future. Developing better decision-making skills not only helps you make better choices today, but also improves your ability to make even better choices tomorrow. Building what researchers call adaptive expertise is crucial for long-term success in rapidly changing environments. Adaptive experts don't just become very skilled at performing existing tasks. They develop the ability to modify their approaches when situations change and to create innovative solutions for novel problems. This requires balancing efficiency with flexibility and mastery with continuous learning. Adaptive expertise involves developing deep understanding of underlying principles rather than just memorizing procedures. Maintaining curiosity and openness to new approaches even as you develop strong skills, and regularly challenging yourself with problems that require you to extend beyond your current capabilities. The practice of strategic renewal prevents the psychological burnout and stagnation that can occur when you maintain high performance over extended periods. This involves regularly stepping back from daily execution to reflect on your progress, reassess your objectives, and refresh your motivation and energy. Without strategic renewal, even the most effective mental mastery practices can become mechanical and lose their transformative power. Strategic renewal might involve quarterly retreats where you evaluate your progress and adjust your strategies. Annual visioning sessions, where you clarify your long-term objectives, or periodic sabbaticals, where you step away from routine activities to gain fresh perspective and renewed energy. Developing what psychologists call wisdom is essential for scaling mental mastery throughout your lifetime. Wisdom involves not just accumulating knowledge and experience, but developing sound judgment about when and how to apply that knowledge effectively. Wisdom includes understanding the limits of your knowledge, recognizing the difference between what you can and cannot control, and maintaining perspective during both successes and setbacks. Wisdom is cultivated through reflection on experience, seeking feedback from trusted advisors, studying the lessons learned by others who have achieved what you aspire to achieve, and maintaining humility about the complexity of life and the unpredictability of outcomes. The principle of teaching others what you've learned creates powerful compound benefits for your own development. When you explain concepts to others, you deepen your own understanding. When you help others overcome challenges you've faced, you reinforce your own mastery. When you mentor others, you continue learning and growing through their questions and perspectives. Teaching also creates what researchers call the protégé effect, where the act of preparing to teach material enhances your own learning and retention. This means that regularly sharing your knowledge and insights with others actually accelerates your own development while contributing to their success as well. Building what researchers call psychological capital is essential for sustaining high performance over time. Psychological capital consists of hope, confidence, resilience, and optimism. These mental resources can be depleted by stress and challenges, but they can also be systematically developed and renewed through specific practices and experiences. This involves regularly setting and achieving meaningful goals to build confidence, maintaining optimistic but realistic expectations about the future, developing multiple pathways to achieve your objectives, and building strong support systems that help you recover from setbacks and maintain motivation during challenging periods. The concept of legacy thinking helps maintain long-term perspective and motivation. Instead of focusing only on immediate results, you consider how your actions and achievements contribute to something larger than yourself. This might involve the impact you have on other people's lives, the contributions you make to your field or community, or the example you set for future generations. Legacy thinking provides meaning and motivation that transcends temporary setbacks and challenges, helping you maintain commitment to growth and excellence, even when immediate rewards are limited. It also helps you make decisions that optimize for long-term value rather than short-term gratification. Chapter 15. The Ultimate Mind Control Challenge. Everything you've learned in this audiobook means nothing unless you apply it consistently in your daily life. Knowledge without action is just entertainment. And transformation requires not just understanding these principles, but embodying them until they become automatic parts of who you are. The gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it consistently is where most people fail. But it's also where the greatest opportunities for breakthrough exist. The reason most people never achieve the success they desire isn't because they lack information or intelligence. In today's world, information is abundant and easily accessible. The limiting factor is execution, the ability to consistently apply what you know despite resistance, obstacles, and the natural human tendency to revert to familiar patterns when faced with stress or uncertainty. Your mind will test every technique you've learned. It will generate doubt about whether these methods really work. It will create urgencies and distractions that seem more important than your mental development. It will convince you that you're too busy, too tired, or too stressed to maintain your practices. This resistance isn't a bug in the system. It's a feature. It's your psychological immune system trying to maintain the status quo and keep you in familiar territory. Understanding this allows you to recognize resistance as a sign that you're approaching something important rather than evidence that you should quit. The magnitude of internal resistance is often proportional to the significance of the breakthrough waiting on the other side. When you feel the strongest urge to give up, you may be closest to your most important insights and transformations. The ultimate mind control challenge is committing to 90 days of consistent daily practice with the core techniques you've learned. 90 days is long enough for new neural pathways to become established, and for you to experience significant changes in your thinking patterns, emotional regulation, and behavioral consistency. It's also short enough to feel achievable and to maintain motivation throughout the entire period. Here's your daily protocol. Begin each morning with 10 minutes of mindful awakening and positive mental programming. Instead of immediately checking your phone or jumping into daily tasks, spend the first 10 minutes of consciousness, consciously directing your thoughts toward your goals, desired identity, and optimal performance for the day. Visualize yourself succeeding at your most important objectives while generating authentic emotions of confidence and enthusiasm. Practice 15 minutes of focused attention training every day. This could be meditation, where you focus on your breath and gently redirect your attention when your mind wanders. It could be deliberate practice on a specific skill where you maintain complete focus on improvement rather than just going through the motions. Or it could be deep work on your most important projects with all distractions eliminated and your attention completely absorbed in the task. Implement daily emotional state management by consciously choosing your emotional responses to challenging situations rather than reacting automatically. When you notice stress, anxiety, frustration, or other disruptive emotions arising, use breathing techniques, physical movement, or cognitive reframing to shift into more empowering emotional states. Track your success at managing your emotions rather than being controlled by them. End each day with 10 minutes of reflection and integration. Review the day's experiences. Identify lessons learned. Acknowledge progress made toward your goals. And set clear intentions for the following day. This conscious integration helps your brain encode positive experiences more deeply and maintain momentum toward your objectives. Most importantly, measure your consistency rather than perfection. Your goal is to complete your daily practices 90% of the time, not to perform them perfectly every single day. Missing one day doesn't reset your progress, but missing 2 consecutive days can significantly slow your development. Focus on getting back on track immediately after any lapses, rather than allowing temporary setbacks to become permanent abandonment of your practices. Track your progress using simple metrics that matter. Instead of trying to measure everything, identify 3 to 5 key indicators that reflect the changes you're trying to create. This might include your consistency with daily practices, your emotional state during challenging situations, your focus and productivity during important work, your confidence in social or professional situations, or your overall sense of control and direction in your life. Create accountability systems that support your commitment. This could involve finding a practice partner who is also working on mental mastery, joining a community of people with similar goals, working with a coach or mentor who can provide guidance and encouragement, or simply making your commitment public so that others can support your efforts and help you stay on track. Expect and prepare for obstacles. Your motivation will fluctuate. Your circumstances will change. Unexpected challenges will arise, and your mind will generate countless reasons why you should quit or postpone your practices. Successful people don't avoid these obstacles, they plan for them. Identify the most likely challenges you'll face and develop specific strategies for maintaining your practices despite these difficulties. Understand that the benefits of mental mastery compound over time. The changes you experience in the first week will be subtle. The changes after 30 days will be more noticeable. The changes after 90 days will be significant enough that others begin to comment on your increased confidence, focus, and effectiveness. The changes after 1 year will transform how you think about what's possible for your life. Most people overestimate what they can accomplish in a day and underestimate what they can accomplish in a year. Sustainable transformation happens through small, consistent actions that accumulate into significant changes over time. Trust the process, maintain consistency, and allow the compound effects of daily mental training to create the breakthrough you're seeking. The moment you finish listening to this audiobook, your transformation either begins or it doesn't. You can continue living with the same mental patterns that have created your current results, or you can commit to the daily practices that will create the life you truly want. The choice is yours, but understand that not choosing is also a choice. Inaction is a decision to accept your current limitations as permanent. Your mind is either your greatest asset or your greatest liability. It's either working for you or against you. It's either creating the success you desire or sabotaging your efforts to achieve it. The techniques you've learned give you the power to ensure that your mind becomes your most powerful ally in creating the life you envision. The question isn't whether these methods work. The neuroscience is clear, the research is conclusive, and millions of people have already used these principles to transform their lives. The question is whether you'll work. Whether you'll commit to the consistent daily practice required to reprogram your mental operating system for automatic success. Your future self is counting on the decisions you make right now. The person you could become, the life you could create, the impact you could have, all of it depends on your willingness to take control of your mind and use it consciously to create the reality you desire. The ultimate mind control challenge starts now. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when conditions are perfect, but right now. Your transformation begins with your very next thought, your very next decision, your very next action. Choose wisely, because your entire future depends on the choice you make in this moment.